طيب تفضل أبو زيد.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. A very good evening to everyone in this hall. I wanted to say good night because it's actually night, but that sounds inappropriate. So good evening to everyone in this hall, and welcome to our very first live talk for this Wednesday Pearl, which is the first Wednesday Pearl of the semester. And alhamdulillah, we started 30 minutes before scheduled time. So inshallah, that should be a good sign. Now, the topic for tonight's first Wednesday Pearl is turn back. And for a topic like this, which I'm sure most of us, alhamdulillah, should understand just by the title, we have with us a very special speaker. And if I were to give a background history or a background experience, it might not do much justice. The Mufti gained his undergraduate degree, his diploma, from the University of Medina, particularly in the field of Hadith, after which he pursued a master's degree in the very same field, after which he is currently pursuing a PhD in the very same field. So inshallah Mufti, the next time you come, we can call you Doctor. So without further ado, I think I don't want to waste too much of our time. Mufti, I'll pass on the mic to you.
جزاكم الله خيرا. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسله الله تعالى بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله ولو كره الكافرون ولو كره المشركون وكفى بالله شهيدا. فصلى الله تعالى عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن سار على منوالهم واقتفى أثرهم إلى يوم الدين وبعد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. It is my pleasure and my honor to be your guest this evening. Thank you very much, Brother Uzair, for the brief yet refreshing introduction. Two very important points whenever you want to introduce someone or something is to make it brief, not too long, and you want it to be crisp or crispy, refreshing. Like a fresh quarter of lime, a slice of a lime in your drink, in your seltzer water. You want to be what? Crisp and refreshing, and never boring, and never too much. And alhamdulillah, a few brothers and some sisters may be smiling, but this is serious. Many people, when they introduce speakers, or when they introduce themselves, they go overboard. And they try to be too funny, they make too many jokes, or they take too much time, or they may be too stiff and too mechanical, all right? So the introduction should be right to the point, and as I said, what? Crisp, the bubbles of the seltzer water with the lime slice, just to get you ready to eat, Midnight time. So with that being said, it's my honor and my pleasure to be here. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows that when I first began studying and seeking knowledge, even before I went overseas, it wasn't in my wildest dreams that I would come to Malaysia and speak to the Muslims and maybe some non-Muslims who may be in attendance here. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ghalibun ala amrihi. Allah Azza wa Jalla is in control. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever He wants to be, is going to be. But most men know not. Most men know not. So with that being said, turn back. Turn back. A live talk by Mufti Muhammad ibn Munir. After speaking with my brother in Islam and our generous and gracious host, Khadr or Khidr, different pronunciations, whether you use Arabic, whether you say it in English, Khidr or Khadr or etc. At the end of the day, in light of last night's talk, in which we spoke on Tawbah, and we spoke on the importance of Tawbah, of repentance, and we spoke on some things and some reasons why many of us do not make Tawbah, things which prohibit us from making Tawbah, all right? Since we spoke on that last night, and obviously this talk is very similar to what we spoke on last night, we said that we would change it up and switch it up just a little, inshallah ta'ala, just a little. And Khadr, he put a condition on me. And he says, if you switch up the script, Mufti, Ibrahim, he says, if you switch it up, then you have to make it relative for both generations and both schools, the old school and the new school, the young brothers and sisters and the older brothers and the older sisters. But alhamdulillah, I think as a whole, or for the most part, we have shabab among us. Maybe a few shuyukh, and I'm sure even those shuyukh are still on, young and strong, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. So with that being said, we want to change the topic just a bit, inshallah ta'ala. But I humbly feel that it's still going to be pertaining to turning back. What are we turning back to? Or who are we turning back to? And why are we turning back? And what are we turning back for? So with that being said, Brother Jose, if you can put up the PDF, inshallah, what we're going to read from tonight, which I feel is very appropriate for each and every single one of us in this room, those who are old and those who are young. For those brothers and sisters who read the Arabic or the Arabic language, you can clearly see it says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Kitab al-Riqaq, Babu ma ja'a fi al-Riqaq, wa la aisha illa aishu al-akhirah. حدثنا المكي بن إبراهيم قال أخبرنا عبد الله بن سعيد هو بن أبي هند عن أبيه عن ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم نعمتان مغبون فيهما كثير من الناس الصحة والفراغ. وقال عباس العنبري حدثنا سفيان بن عيسى عن عبد الله بن سعيد بن أبي هند عن أبيه قال سمعت ابن أبي عباس عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم مثله. حدثنا محمد بن بشار قال حدثنا غندر قال حدثنا شعبة عن معاوية بن قرة عن أنس عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال اللهم لا عيش إلا عيش الآخرة فأصلح الأنصار والمهاجرات. حدثني أحمد بن المقدام قال حدثنا الفضيل بن سليمان قال حدثنا أبو حازم قال حدثنا سهل بن سعد الساعدي رضي الله عنه قال كنا مع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم في الخندق ويحفر ونحن ننقل التراب وبصرنا بنا أو بصر بنا فقال اللهم لا عيش إلا عيش الآخرة فاغفر للأنصار والمهاجرات. تابعه سهل بن سعد عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم مثله. So we just read to you, and the reason why I'm reading to you in Arabic, and the reason why I'm presenting it to you in Arabic, there are many reasons behind this. Some of you may say, why are you reading Arabic to us? And most of us, or many of us, or for sure, we can agree that some of us don't speak or read Arabic. I'm not from Sudan, or Bahrain, or Qatar, or Saudi, or this place or that place, Nigeria. We're not Arab people, or Arabic or Arabian people. Syria or Iraq, or wherever you come from, and which people speak the Arabic language. From Mali, wherever your nation is. Or those brothers and sisters from Malaysia or Singapore who've learned the Arabic language. One thing that we can agree on for sure, Ashik, is that many of us in this room don't speak Arabic. And many of us don't understand Arabic. We may be able to say most of us, but for sure many of us. So why are you presenting this to us? Wouldn't it be easier, wouldn't it make more sense to just present it in English? Wouldn't it make more sense to just go right into the translation? Are you trying to impress us? Why? And why is the book so old and so quote-unquote crusty looking, the print? You couldn't find a better print of the book. There are many reasons why I chose to do it this way, many reasons. And from those reasons, brothers and sisters, is what we mentioned this morning, is the importance of authenticity and the importance of orthodoxy. The importance of taking the people back to antiquity, to the asl, and to show true Islamic scholarship. True Islamic scholarship. Everyone understand this? And we live in a time in which there are plenty LOL sheikhs. And there are plenty of people who speak and talk about Islam, and they're not basing it off of anything which is authentic and orthodox. Oftentimes people, they connect you to themselves, or they connect you to this scholar, or to this group, or to this organization. So what we're trying to do, and what we have been trying to do for these years, is to connect the people to antiquity, to the original asl of Islamic scholarship, which is inshallah ta'ala simplified and made easy and broken down and categorized and put into a simple, easy, understandable way. But the authenticity, the antiquity, the orthodoxy must remain. Everyone understand this? It must remain. And many of the problems that we find today in dawah, especially in the MSAs around the world and in colleges, we have lack of authentic and true Islamic scholarship. Lack of authentic and true Islamic scholarship. Now, many of you are mechanical engineers and studying for all types of things, masters and PhDs, smart, intelligent, educated, professional people that I'm sitting in front of. So I'm sure, even if you're not studying an Islamic degree, or you haven't studied in an Islamic degree, you know the importance of true scholarship. And you know the importance of someone teaching you and giving you the information from the authentic and original and organic source. And when you have that, you root out and you weed out a fraction of the problems of studying and teaching. All problems don't go away just because we read from an older book or I give you the source. But if we have 10 issues or 10 people differing, the lives of God, we can get rid of 7 of those issues, 7 of those problems, or 7 problematic speakers and sheikhs and du'ats just by going back to the original orthodox way. Everyone understand this? So the concept of scholarship and the concept of authenticity. So that is the point that we're trying to get across with the night ta'ala. I'm not here to bore you. I'm not here to impress you. I'm not here to entertain you. We do want to simplify things and make things easy and make it, inshallah, a fun learning experience and an enjoyable lecture or class or workshop. But it's something deeper and more important than that. Being in the night ta'ala. So if you can, Brother Uzair, if you could magnify it a little bit or make it wider for us, inshallah. Nafis, he took your rewards from you. Jazakallah khairan, go to the full view. Do I have a pointer, a laser pointer? Thank you very much, Uzair. Alright, so that's inshallah ta'ala if you can, if it's possible. I don't know if these wires will allow me. I can't get up? Oh, tight, no problem. Diverse. Tight. So, with regards to turning back, right, guys? Turning back. Making tawbah. Or with regards to a topic or a subject which is beneficial for the shabab and the shiban, the older and the younger, the old and the new, etc. This, it clearly states, it says, Kitab al-Riqaq. Kitab al-Riqaq. For those who speak Arabic, it says Kitab al-Riqaq. And this is one of the most important and one of the least or the seldomly mentioned books or chapters in Sahih al-Bukhari. Sahih al-Bukhari, which is the most authentic book after the Quran al-Kareem and the most authentic of the books of Hadith. And Sahih al-Bukhari, which is one of the most important and one of the most phenomenal books written in the history of the human race. One of the most phenomenal books written in the history of the human race. Not just of Islam, Abu Sa'id, and not just of Hadith, and not just of the Muslims, but of the humans as a whole. So with that being said, Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah, he has many chapters in his book. And from the chapters are very important for us to read as college students, for young Muslims, and for old Muslims, for scholars, for teachers, for imams, for husbands and wives, future wives. People speaking on comparative religion and interfaith and things like this is Kitab al-Riqaq, is the book of heart-softening and heart-melting narrations. Narrations, statements of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, stories of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which when you read them, they're supposed to be impactful on your heart and on your mind. They're supposed to have an immediate effect on your emotional and spiritual state. They're supposed to take the hardness of the heart, the darkness of the heart, and the rust from your hearts through sin, through idle talk, through the worldly life, through college, through work, through kids, through hustle and bustle, going and coming, sitting in traffic, stop and go traffic, paying bills, taking care of children, raising a family, playing sports, video games, social media, let alone haram acts, sin that we make. These things, they cloud our minds. And oftentimes, they put us in a state of heedlessness. And oftentimes, you may wake up and you go to sleep and you think or you feel that you're just here to learn and get a degree or make money or go and play sports or enjoy your desires or worry about your appearance and how you look and how people are looking at you. Or those of us who like to work out. I work out, I starve myself, I eat this, I drink this, I do this just to look good for the next person. And we become heedless. Our hearts become hard, let alone through actual sin, through taking that second gaze. or a 5-minute first gaze. As the Prophet ﷺ, he told Jarir radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he says, "Isrif basarak, فَإِنَّمَا لَكَ الْأُولَى وَلَيْسَ لَكَ الثَّانِيَةِ." He says, turn your eyes away. You have the first look and not the second one. And it doesn't mean that you can continue to stare for the first one. قال سألت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم عن نظر الفجاءة. نظر الفجاءة هذا ليس الفجأة هذا عمد. An accidental look. So there are many things that we do on a daily basis which can cause our hearts to become hard, and may cause our hearts to become stained and rusted, and may cause our hearts to be blackened. وَلِيَذُ بِاللَّهِ. Sometimes it's disobedience, and sometimes it is heedlessness, ghafla. Just like things make gold and silver and other metals and alloys rust and deteriorate, the same applies to the heart. So when it comes to those of you who are young and studying, those of you who are older and mature and seasoned, those of you who are married, those of you who are not married, you all are under the stress and the pressure of the hayatul dunya, the worldly life. Speaking and talking about myself first and foremost. We're all under the hayatul dunya. So we always need to check our hearts, and we need to soften our hearts. And from the best ways of softening one's heart is to read the specific hadiths that talk about melting the heart, softening the heart. Are we understand this? And in my humble opinion, this is extremely important for college students. And it's extremely important for the concept of da'wah, and the concept of comparative religion, and the concept of living and coexisting with other faiths and other religions. Other faiths and other religions. So therefore, Kitab al-Riqa'iq, that's the main book, and the subchapter it says, Babu ma ja'a fil riqaq, wa an la aisha illa aishul akhirah. What hadiths, what statements of the Prophet, actions of the Prophet, stories of the Prophet. And that's because Islam is nothing more than the way of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That is Islam, the way of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasallam. There's a story, a hadith, in which the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he went to visit one of his neighbors, one of the people who lived with him in Medina. And the beautiful thing about this story is that this person whom he visited wasn't a Muslim. He wasn't a follower of the Prophet. It wasn't someone that was upon his way in his faith. And it shows us many things. And it debunks many myths and lies about Islam. The Prophet went to visit someone that wasn't a follower of his religion. Rather, one could say, perhaps this person whom he wanted to go visit was someone who may have conspired against him, or took up, made allegiances against him. But he went to go visit him for one reason only, because he was his neighbor. And the person whom he visited was a young Jewish boy. A young Jewish boy. Wasn't a Muslim, he wasn't from the Ansar, wasn't from the Muhajirin, he was a Jewish man who lived in Medina, a Jewish young man. So the boy was very sick, as if he was on his deathbed. And the Prophet ﷺ, out of his beautiful character, he went to go visit this young Jewish boy. And he gave him some advice. And he encouraged him to embrace the faith of him, of the companions, and of his ancestors, of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, and the immediate direct descendants of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, the Jews who were Muslims. The people in the time of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, according to what we believe as Muslims, we believe that they were Muslims. The Jews of Musa who followed him and practiced his religion were Muslims. They submitted to the will of God, and they obeyed the Prophet and the Messenger of God. So he wanted to advise this young man about something. And he told him to make the shahada, to bear witness that there's no God but Allah, and I am his final messenger, just like Moses was his messenger. So the young boy, out of his fear for his father and his good character, he looked towards his father, as if he asked for permission. Can I change my religion or my faith? Can I revert back to this original way? Can I follow this man? And subhanAllah, the man who was a Jew himself, who was not a Muslim, he wasn't a follower of Muhammad, he gave his son permission to leave his religion and follow the Prophet Muhammad. So the young boy, he made the shahada on his deathbed. He said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu annaka anta Rasulullah, that you are the messenger of Allah. What did the Prophet ﷺ say? Alhamdulillah alladhi anqadhahu bi min an-nar. He says, all praises for Allah, praise be to God, who used me to save him from the fire of hell. All praises for Allah who used me to deliver his soul. So this beautiful hadith, which we're not here to talk about in detail, it shows us is that the only way to be delivered from the fire of hell, and the only way to reach salvation, and the only way which leads to paradise is through Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And how do we get to Muhammad except through his ahadith, his sunnah? فَإِن تَنَازَعْتُمْ فِي شَيْءٍ فَرُدُّوهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَالرَّسُولِ. Allah tells us in the 4th chapter of the Quran, the chapter of women, Surah An-Nisa, and if you differ on anything about which you differ, then take it back to Allah and his apostle. Take it back to Allah and his messenger. What does this mean? If me and you differ on something, I say you can't wear that red shirt, it's haram. And you say you can't wear a blue blazer, navy blue is haram. I'm right, you're wrong. You shouldn't smile, you can't do that, you can't sit down. We differ. Can we go to Allah? Can we walk outside of this auditorium and say, oh Allah, tell us who's wrong, who's right? If we differ on an issue, can we go to the Rasul? Is the Messenger of Allah waiting for us outside of the auditorium? Who's right, O Messenger of Allah? Can I wear navy blue or can I wear a red t-shirt? But yet and still, this verse remains in the Quran and is going to be recited until the end of time. So what's meant by that is returning back to the Quran and the Bukhari and Muslim and Abu Dawood and Tirmidhi and Musnad Ahmad and Muwatta Malik. Whatever we differ over, we have to take it back to the Quran and to the Sunnah. So Islam is nothing more than the way of the Prophet. And the way of the Prophet is nothing more than these books. And this is what we need to focus on here in Malaysia and in New York City and wherever else. We talk about bid'ah, innovations, non-Muslims, this, that, all these problems, culture. The cure is in these books. And the more we study these books, the more we read these books, the more we have a proper understanding of these classical, traditional books, and we can simplify them and break them down and allow them to apply to the modern current state of affairs, the better our lives will be. And the more thorough our dawah will be. And it makes it easy for us to make the proper decisions living as Muslims in 2019 in Malaysia or in any other place and region in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's spacious earth. Everyone understand this? So therefore, the chapter heading, the subchapter says, what is mentioned from the Prophet concerning heart-softening narrations? وَلَا عَيْشَ إِلَّا عَيْشُ الْآخِرَةِ. And that there's no true life except for that of the hereafter. There's no true life except for the afterlife. Our life here is temporary. Our life here is not meant to amass as much worldly material possessions as you can grab and throw it into your pouch or your sack and throw it over top of your shoulder and hoard. That's not what's meant by this life. But it doesn't mean that we don't need things during this life. And we aren't allowed to enjoy certain things in this life, like a hotel. They want to make the hotel comfortable for the traveler. They want to make it comfy and convenient for the traveler. They want to have a good experience for the traveler, but there's no place like home. And the hotel can never ever suit one's actual what? House and one's home. Because the hotel is temporary. You may not clean your house every day. You may not change your bed sheets every day. You may not empty out the trash can in the bathroom every day. You may not do all of these things and make up your bed every single day, especially being college students, right? That's why they call it a bachelor pad. Everyone understands? You may not do these things every day, but if you go to the hotel, what do they want to do every day? Room service. Not only they want to knock on the door, but if you don't open up in enough time, they do what? They'll come in. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you need house cleaning? Do you need room service? You say, come back in 20 minutes. Oh, I don't need anything today. Even though all my towels are gone, the floor is dirty, the brothers are eating and drinking, but we don't want any people to disturb us today. So the point is that there's certain things in a hotel which are not like in one's what? House. To prove to you that the hotel is what? Temporary. And your real true comfort and comfortability is only where what? In your home. So this is what Imam al-Bukhari is telling us before he even gets into the hadiths, is that there is no true living except for that of the hereafter. Living which is eternal, living which is true and real, is that of the akhirah. And everything that we get in this dunya, And everything we go through, of good or for bad, is only temporary. It's only temporary. That's beyond deep. Deep is a what? Is an understatement. So this was Imam al-Bukhari's rationale. Before I move forward, brothers and sisters, this also goes to show us one of the lies and one of the myths that many people say about the Sunnah and the people who try to implement and spread and propagate the Sunnah is that there's no spirituality in the way of the Sunnah. And that if you're religious and you're a person of the Sunnah, it's nothing but just harshness. And it's nothing but just technical things. Wear a beard, wear hijab, pray, put your hands like this, and that's it. And there's no pure spirituality. There's no internalization of faith. There's no tazkiyah. And tazkiyah has to be found in another way, and another dawah, and another set of rules and principles. That's a lie. Right here, Sahih Bukhari is the foundation of the books. It's the most fundamental book of what? Of the Sunnah way. And he has an entire chapter in which he talks about spiritual what? Ality. And the internal sense, and never to neglect your heart. Everyone understand this? And if you're giving dawah ashik, and someone comes up to you and says, you people, all you do is have beards, and you wear tuppies, and you cover your face and your hands, and that's it. You don't have no tazkiyah. You have to be this, you have to call yourself that, to have purification of the heart and of the soul. If you're not aware of this, and if you don't know this, and if your nose is not in this book, you may fall victim to this doubt. Even though you know it's not the truth. But you don't have the specific ability to quote it and to pull it up immediately. And people, they may go and they may follow them and be misled because you're not reading Sahih Bukhari enough. So this is an extremely important chapter in Sahih Bukhari, just like all other chapters. For the daily Muslim, for the scholar, the student of knowledge, the husband, the father, the imam, the mother, whatever you do in life, you're going to need this chapter. And you always need to be reminded is that there is no true life except for that of the hereafter. Then Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah, he mentions something which we call al-isnad. He mentions al-isnad. And the isnad is basically the chain of men and or women. The chain of reporters. Where do you get your news from? You watch the news, there was a bad accident. This person died. This person was kidnapped. There was a flood or a storm. A train was derailed. The one who's on the television screen, did he see the train become derailed? Did he see the person become kidnapped? Did he see the floods? He or she didn't. They're getting it from someone and from somebody else. The anchor, who saw it, who heard it, the eyewitness, etc. That's their chain of reporters. So Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah, he mentions his isnad, his chain of narration, and he's telling you where he got this hadith from. And where he's giving you his source and his authority. So the teacher of Imam al-Bukhari, it says here that his name, Hadathana al-Makkiyu ibn Ibrahim. His name was Makki. That's his first name. Was that his first name? Or was that his nickname? Because he lived in Mecca, or he's from Mecca. Al-Muhim, hypothetically speaking, that was his what? First name. Makki. Like Fawzi or Fathi. It's his name, Makki. Makki, the son of Ibrahim. So Imam al-Bukhari is basically telling you, this man Makki told not just Imam al-Bukhari, but a bunch of people some information. So if you left this college hall, you said, reported to me, Mufti Muhammad ibn Munir. Or reported to us. He told us. And then you tell your own individual students. You understand this? So the teacher of Imam al-Bukhari, his name is Makki. That's his teacher. And Imam al-Bukhari was sitting in a circle or a class, and they were listening to this man whose name was Makki, the son of Ibrahim. So that's the first person in the chain of narration. Moving forward, it says, أخبرنا عبد الله ibn Sa'id, وهو ibn Abi Hind. His teacher was the man whose name was Abdullah, the son of Sa'id, who's the son of Abu Hind. And before we go any further, brothers and sisters, I'm going to ask you a question. How many people, if you have a garden, right, and the garden is ran by a professional gardener, yourself, you went to school or you were taught the professional proper way of gardening, and what plants and what trees and what flowers, and you have a nice gate, you've given a great deal of service to your garden, how many weeds do you think you'll have in your garden? How many weeds do you think will be in your garden? Maybe a few, but do you think your garden will be rampant with weeds? It will not be. And the same applies to knowledge. When you have this scientific information and the true scholastic information, it automatically does what? It weeds out people that don't have knowledge and don't need to be talking about Islam. You understand this? Because the average person is going to get turned off from this. And that excludes, if you can't take 5 minutes to learn the basics of hadith and of Imam al-Bukhari and of your deen, then it goes to show you that you want something quick and ready-made. Something entertaining, an entertaining story about Islam to make you laugh, to make things funny. Everyone understand this? And this is one of the things that has plagued the Muslims. People that are not qualified to speak. Speaking about what? Al-Islam. And this perhaps is one of the most dangerous things in da'wah today. One of the most dangerous things in da'wah today. People saying what Islam is and what Islam isn't. Politics, women in Islam, jihad in Islam, other people, other faiths in Islam, whatever the issue of controversy is in the media. Someone gets on the news, someone does an interview, someone writes a book, someone has an article in the newspaper, and he starts talking, and he is not qualified Islamically. Everyone understand this? And if he is qualified Islamically, he is not quoting from an authentic and original source. Everyone understand this? Moving forward, Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah, he quotes from Abdullah ibn Sa'id, from his father, Ibn Abi Hind, who narrated from the companion, Ibn Abbas, radiallahu anhuma. And Ibn Abbas said that the Prophet ﷺ said the following words, and this is what I want to focus on right here for my talk tonight about turning back and about young brothers and sisters and older brothers and sisters. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, نِعْمَتَانِ مَغْبُونٌ فِيهِمَا كَثِيرٌ مِنَ النَّاسِ الصحة والفراغ. It says نعمتان مغبون فيهما كثير من الناس الصحة والفراغ. Who would like to memorize this hadith tonight? Who would like to give it a try? Anyone want to give it a try? I guarantee it's very easy, inshallah ta'ala. Anybody else want to give it a try? Who's brave enough to memorize the hadith tonight? All right, inshallah. So everyone, bidin if you can, let's try to repeat after me. Inshallah. Everyone repeat after me, inshallah, on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Ni'matani. Ni'matani. Ni'ma. Ni'matani. 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 Maghbunun. Ni'matani maghbunun. I want everyone to try. Everyone to give it your effort. Everybody, inshallah. Ni'matani. Everybody's lips are not moving. How many miles did we travel to get here? Khidr. 9,000 miles. The least of my rights upon you. Aqal huquqi alaykum. The least of my rights upon you is that you try. The least of my rights upon you. Huh? Our families are in New York City, Philadelphia, New Jersey at home. What? Missing us. Suffering. Come back home. Why are you in Malaysia? The least of our rights upon you is that you what? Is that you try. Everyone understand this? And this is not an exaggeration. Is it, Abu Sa'id? We go home to the hotel. You call your family. You FaceTime your wife, your children. Abby, where are you? When you coming back? What are you going to bring me? How's Malaysia? Everyone understand this? So the least of my rights upon you is that you guys give it some effort, inshallah ta'ala. نعمتان نعمتان مغبون نعمتان مغبون فيهما نعمتان مغبون فيهما نعمتان مغبون فيهما نعمتان مغبون مغبون نعمة تاني نعمتان مغبون فيهما مغبون فيهما كثير من الناس كثير من الناس كثير من الناس نعمتان مغبون فيهما كثير من الناس. الصحة والفراغ. الصحة والفراغ. نعمتان مغبون فيهما كثير من الناس. الصحة والفراغ. نعمتان مغبون فيهما كثير من الناس. الصحة والفراغ. Right, okay, very good. First volunteer. First right hand to go up. Who's memorized the hadith? Narrated Abdullah ibn Abbas. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, Ahsant. Easy, very easy. Next. Who's next? Who's next? Fadl. We're going to assist the next. Inshallah, it's very easy. Fadl. Fadl, ya akhi. Ahsan, Jazakallah khairan. Next. Who's next? Who's next? Give it a shot. Somebody got to give it a shot. Bismillah. Bismillah, let's go. Jazakallah khairan. Ahsan, very good. Who's next? Another. Who's next? Someone else. Fadl ya akhi. Narrated Abdullah ibn Abbas. حدثنا المكي بن إبراهيم. The chain of narration. By Fadl. نعمتان مغبون. Start from the beginning. Narrated Ibn Abbas. Jazakallah khairan. Ahsant. Who's next? Who's next? Bismillah. Jazakallah khairan. Very easy. Very easy. One more inshallah. Fadl, Hanif.
قال ابن عباس قال رسول الله قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم نعمتان مغبون فيهما كثير
من الناس. No one help. No one help. Uzair, we'll give you the full isnad. Ashik.
نعمتان مغبون فيهما من الناس
كثير
من الناس
الصحة
الصلاة
والفراغ.
والفراغ.
Jazakallah khairan. طيب. All right, guys. So, look how simple and easy it was to memorize the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. So you should try to do this, inshallah, at least once a night. Once a night. Challenge yourself. And that's another thing about knowledge and about learning and teaching, guys. If it's too easy, in most cases, it isn't good. There has to be some challenge. There has to be some effort that you put into it. And if someone is trying to make things something superly duperly easy and fun and like a game, that is a sign that it's not authentic. It's not what? It's not authentic. It doesn't have to be backbreaking. We're not in a room full of scholars of hadith or students of hadith area. It doesn't have to be backbreaking. But it has to be some type of what? Push. Everyone understand this? Tayyib. So with that being said, what does this hadith mean? The Prophet ﷺ, in this hadith he says, ni'matani, two favors or two blessings. Maghbunun, in which people are at loss. Maghbun, they're cheated. They lose out on. Kathirun. Always says fihima, in them both. Kathir, obviously in Arabic and English, or I'm sure in Malay or other languages, Spanish, French, German, different languages, certain words come before and after when they're translated. And it's not always word for word, huh? Certain words are put before, gender, pronouns, etc. Huh? So the hadith, it says two bounties of Allah, two favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, things that Allah gave you, things that Allah has blessed you with and endowed you with. مغبون فيهما كثير من الناس يعني أكثر الناس إن الشرك لظلم عظيم يعني لأعظم الظلم. This hadith says two bounties of Allah in which most people are losers. That's what the hadith is saying. They're losers. They're not winners when it comes to these two blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Most people. And only a few people have the ability to utilize these blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala And this is going to be relative for younger brothers, older brothers, younger sisters, and older sisters. What are these two blessings that most of us lose out on? That most of you don't take advantage of going to this college. That most of you don't think about when you wake up, when you go to sleep, going to college. He says, as-sihha wal-faragh. He says it's good health, strong health, and free time. Good health and free time. Think about this now. How often, Ahmed, do you want to do something else but you got to study? You want to go for a walk or go jogging or go eat or go hang out or whatever you want to do, but you got to study. Or you got to work and make ends meet and pay bills. You have to do a project. You have to do research. You have to sit in the library. But you want to do something else. And you say, dang, man, subhanAllah, I wish I had what? More time to prepare for my exam. I wish I had more time to hang out. I wish the summer break, I wish the semester break was longer. Is this not the case? You lose out on your free time, let alone when you become sick. How many of us, or how many of you miss classes because of sickness? You're sick. I couldn't come to the exam. I couldn't play at the game. I couldn't do this because I'm sick. I couldn't play sports. I didn't want to be a mechanical engineer. I wanted to be a lacrosse player or a soccer player. I wanted to be a bodybuilder or an Olympic swimmer, but I injured my what? My ACL. I tore it. I want to understand this? In America, people want to play basketball, right? How many people have talent? That was you. Happened to you? You said? Somebody that you know, right? Everyone understand this? People that don't take advantage of their good health, let alone other sicknesses and other illnesses. So this hadith, it says that there are two favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and which most people do not take advantage of. And that is good health and free time. So now I'm going to ask another trivia question before we move forward. How does this hadith pertain to softening one's heart? And why did Imam al-Bukhari mention this as the first hadith in the chapter? How does this soften your heart? Fadl, ya akhi.
It reminds you of the most important blessings you've been given.
It reminds you of the most important blessings that you have been given. Without a question. But how does it soften your heart though?
Because other people, many people around you might not get that.
It makes you think critically. It makes you think what? Critically. It makes you aware. And the first sign or the first step in softening your heart is to make you aware and to make you realize that there are so many people in the world today who live in utter and abject poverty. The average person doesn't care, or at least he doesn't know, because he has his food, his drink, his phone, his internet, his data, his video games, and his sports. And the average person doesn't realize, as we speak, there are people in the world today that live with subhuman standards. So when he sits down and he watches a commercial or a movie or reads an article about these people in this country and they're starving and they die of this disease and they die of famine, it does what? It may spoil his meal. And he says, wow, man. And it does what? Softens his heart. My problems aren't that bad. My struggles aren't that bad. There are people that are doing 10 times worse than I am and who have far less than I do. And it makes you more appreciative and more grateful. So Imam al-Bukhari is trying to wake you up here and to show you that most of us, or most of you, are losers when it comes to the two most important pieces of gold that Allah has given you. And that is everything that you can possibly think of and desire in life is going to be based off of these two things. It's going to be based off of what? These two things. One of the greatest world conquerors, as we know, was Temujin, or Genghis Khan. When he was on his deathbed, some people, they say that he said to his sons and his grandsons, that huge empire that he had obtained overnight, he said to his sons and his grandsons, he says, I'm sorry, it wasn't enough time to conquer the whole world. Stop and think about this. He says, I'm sorry, I didn't have enough time to do what? Conquer everything on his deathbed. Just look how deep that statement is, subhanAllah. That was the thing that he thought would stop them from conquering everything. Because it wasn't enough what? It wasn't enough time. And he understood and he appreciated the value of what? Time. That he ran out of what? Time. So you may have the strength, you may have the brains, you may have the money, you may have the looks, but you may not have enough time. And Allah may not give you the necessary barakah in your time. Or if you have free time and you have longevity, you don't necessarily have the what? The physical ability to do so. You want to travel, you want to go here, you want to do this, but you become sick, you become ill. Or at best, you become weak and your body doesn't have the vigor anymore to do what you desire to do. Everyone understand this? So just stop and think about this now. When it comes to sports, or when it comes to education, or when it comes to anything that you wish to do of the worldly life, and also of the religion. Also of the religion. If you don't have good, strong health, and if you don't have free time, you're not going to reach your goals. You're not going to reach your goals. But most of us, we don't reach our goals, and we don't obtain our dreams, not because there's not enough time, but we waste a lot of time. And we destroy our health. We smoke, we drink, we oversleep, we undersleep, we abuse ourselves to our sexual desires and pleasures. We do things to our body. We eat loads of junk and drink tons of rubbish and our soft drinks and sugar and all types of things. And then we complain about getting sick and getting weak and having ailments. And we complain about there's not enough time. No, there's enough time if you put your phone down. There's enough time if you cut off this television screen. There's enough time if you put the weights down. If you don't stand in front of the mirror for an hour putting on your makeup, there's enough time. Just like you budget with money, you can budget with your time. Some sisters laughing. This is a reality. This is true. How much time do you spend on these things? Important or not, haram, whatever the case is. How much time do you spend on so many other things and you complain about there's not enough time? Brothers, there's not enough time to study everything in Medina. I can't study this, I can't read this. There's plenty of time. But you want to laugh, you want to joke, you want to eat. It takes you an hour to eat a meal. 30 minutes to eat a meal. It takes you 45 minutes to drive to where you're going. How long does it take you to decide what you want to eat? There are many people in many countries, they only have one thing to eat. And it takes them 5 minutes to eat. It gives them the necessary energy. That's it. Khalas, alhamdulillah, back to work, back to studying, back to writing, or back to training. And that is why many athletes who come from poorer countries, they're better athletes. They're better athletes. They don't have the luxurious distractions that people have in the United States. You understand this? Right. Now let's move forward to some commentary of this hadith. Some classic commentary. So move this down, please, Nafis. The next page. Sorry, tight. Stop. All right, tight. Let's move forward. Move down a little more. Stop. All right, tight. Says here. And I can get a volunteer to read for us tonight, inshallah. Maybe Ibrahim. Khalid ibn Battal. Ma'na hadith. Fadl Ibrahim. تقرأ لنا إن شاء الله. تقرأ لنا. استعن بربك. If you don't want to read, I'll find someone else. Another volunteer, inshallah. طيب. We come back to you. طيب. Anyone else volunteer to read? Inshallah. فضل. What's your name, أخي? يحيى. فضل. قال ابن بطال.
قال ابن بطال معنى الحديث أن المرء لا يكون فارغا حتى يكون مكفيا صحيح البدن، فمن حصل له ذلك فليحرص على ألا يغبن بأن يترك شكر الله على ما أنعم به عليه، ومن شكره امتثاله ومن شكره امتثال أوامره واجتناب نواهيه، فمن فرط في ذلك فهو مغبون. وأشار بقوله كثير من الناس إلى أن الذي يوفق لفعل قليل. وقال ابن الجوزي.
طيب معلش يحيى جزاك الله خيرا. The first commentary on this hadith, it says here, قال ابن بطال. In this book here we're reading from, it's called Fath al-Bari. It's not the only explanation of Sahih Bukhari. It's not the first commentary, but it's one of the best, if not the best. And it is a book that was written by someone who lived and died in the 9th century. And he's quoting from a scholar who came before him. And this goes to show us the levels of knowledge and authenticity once more. So the Muslims, how did the Muslims live in the 9th century? Were they weak? Were they few in number? Did they have this problem, this issue? Were they apologetic? They didn't have these issues that we have today. So the explanation is going to be strong and it's going to be pure. You understand this? You have freshly grounded coffee beans, right? It's not the same as Nescafe. There's no comparison, rather, between the two. No offense to Nescafe, but it's not the same. It's not what? It's not the same. Everyone understand this? No comparison. Right? The Malaysian white coffee, right? It's not the same. Naam, Ashik? It's not the same. So this commentator here, Ibn Battal, he says, this hadith means what? قال ابن بطال رحمه الله تعالى معنى الحديث is that a person cannot have any free time until he's healthy. And if a person is healthy but it doesn't have any free time, what's the purpose? What can you do if you're always tied up and busy? And what can you do if you're free but you're in a hospital bed, or you're sitting down, or you have this thing plugged up to you? What can you do with your life? So those who have these two blessings, they have obtained a great deal. And if you don't use them properly as young men and women, and if you haven't used them properly as an older man or an older woman, فَهُوَ الْمَغْبُونَ, then you've been cheated. And Allah did not cheat you. The people didn't cheat you. It wasn't your teacher or your coach or your sheikh. You cheated yourself. You cheated yourself. So therefore, brothers and sisters, those who are aspiring, let these words be words of wisdom. Take heed to them. Those who are older and years have passed by, if you did well, alhamdulillah, thank Allah for that. And if you didn't do so well, then the two responsibilities that you have. Number one is to do good with that which remains. And number two is pass on the teachings to the coming generations. Pass on the teachings to the coming generations. You may find someone who abused alcohol his whole life, and he feels bad about it. And he realizes, I'll never be sober. I'll always be drunk. I can't do without alcohol. My life is done. But he says to his son, or he says to a young man who's walking into a bar, or he says to a person, and he warns him, he says, don't be like me. Don't be foolish like I was. Listen to me. You don't want to do that. You don't want to try that. It may seem fun, it may feel good in the beginning, but it's only going to lead to misery. I lost everything to alcohol. I lost my wife. I lost my kidney. I lost my liver. I lost my job. I used to be a great athlete. And he may show you a picture, or he may show you a video. That's me in that highlight reel. I was that. I had scouts coming to my high school, not my college, but to my what? My high school, because of my talent, but I did drugs. And then all of that is lost and gone. He can't turn back the hands of time, but he can do good with what remains, and most importantly, he can warn the upcoming people. Everyone understand this? So most of you in this room are young, so be mindful of this. Do you want to cheat yourself? Do you want to be a loser? Do you want to waste your life and waste your strength and waste your beauty and waste your handsomeness upon that which is of no benefit in the deen or the what? Or the dunya. And unfortunately, there are many of us who are like this. We're not doing anything for Islam, and we're not doing anything to make our worldly lives better. And that is total loss. So, bi'idhnillahi, you want to do both. First and foremost is the deen. And secondly, you want to make some type of impact in the dunya. Live comfortably, take care of your parents, get married, raise a family, huh? You want to find a nice sister, find a nice brother. You want to have a family, you want to do these things, alhamdulillah. You can't do that if you don't take advantage of these two golden things. And that is your free time, and that is your health. So do not waste time, do not kill time, and do not abuse your health at a young age. Moving forward, Yahya says, وَقَالَ ابْنُ الْجَوْزِي وقال ابن الجوزي
وقال ابن الجوزي قد فرط في ذلك. قد يكون الإنسان صحيحا ولا يكون متفرغا لشغله بالمعاش، وقد يكون مستغنيا ولا يكون صحيحا، فإذا اجتمع فغلب عليه الكسل عن طاعة فهو المغبون.
If you become lazy, Allah gives you strength, free time, wealth, good looks, an intelligent mind, but you're just too lazy and too lethargic to push yourself and to exert yourself and dare to be great, then you've also cheated yourselves. You've cheated yourselves. You haven't given it your all. So you've made yourself a loser. Waliyadu billah. Moving forward.
وتمام ذلك أن الدنيا مزرعة الآخرة وفيها التجارة التي يظهر ربحها في الآخرة. فمن استعمل فراغه وصحته في طاعة الله فهو المغبوط، ومن استعملها في معصية الله فهو المغبون، لأن الفراغ يعقوبه الشغل، والصحة يعقوبها السقم، ولو لم يكن إلا الهرم كما قيل.
يسر الفتى طول السلامة والبقاء. بسم الله. فكيف ترى طول السلامة يفعل؟ يرد الفتى بعد اعتدال وصحة، ينو إذا رام القيامة ويحمل. He quotes from another scholar, Ibn al-Jawzi, who says, is that the one who uses these two blessings to reach the hereafter, and also for the good of this life, in which the true buying and selling, the true trading, the true commerce becomes clear. We're all traders, just like we're all farmers. Everyone in this room is supposed to be a hustler. You're buying and you're selling, and you're trying to make profit. But you're buying and you're selling, and the profit that you're trying to make is hasanat, and avoiding sayyiat. Every day I wake up and I sell myself. I sell my soul to stack up as much money as I possibly can, to fill my coffers with good deeds. And then hereafter is the only time in which you can truly see how many gold coins you stacked up, and how much money you lost, and how poor of a businessman you were. The seeds that you placed in the earth, how good you farmed and harvested those seeds, can only be manifested in the hereafter. Everyone understand this, guys? Everyone is trying to buy and sell. You're trying to buy your ticket to save you from the fire of hell and for Allah to put you in the paradise. Everyone understand this? And this only is clear in full in the what? In the hereafter. So using your good health and using your free time to obey Allah, to obey His Messenger, to learn the deen, to practice the deen, to be a good Muslim in your society, that is the goal. College, marriage, a car, a house, these things, they're nothing more than bridges to this goal. That's your final destination that everybody is supposed to want. That everybody's supposed. Everyone understand what I'm speaking now? About trade and commerce, buying and selling. Everyone wants to make money, right? That's why you want to be a mechanical engineer. You want to make money. You want to have a good life. It's natural. And the most important type of money to make is the spiritual money. The spiritual what? Bitcoin. You want the hasanat to be what? In abundance. And you want to get the hasanat while they're still available. Because you may want to pray, you may want to fast, you may want to give zakah, but you're too decrepit and weak or busy to do so. Everyone understand the point here? And then the last thing we mentioned tonight here is two lines of poetry, in which it says, يَسُرُّ الْفَتَى طُولُ السَّلَامَةِ وَالْبَقَى. The young man is pleased by endless health and long years of living. The young man, the young woman, he's pleased to be strong, to be handsome, to be beautiful. It pleases you. You feel good. When you're young, how many days can go by without you sleeping? You don't have to eat a complete meal. You don't have to worry about how much sugar or how many calories. You feel like you have endless energy, right? You feel that you're so beautiful when you're young. You're so strong, so handsome, so cool, so hip, right? You feel this, and it makes you happy. This is what the young man is pleased with. فَكَيْفَ تَرَى طُولَ السَّلَامَةِ يَفْعَلُ. So what do you think this long, limitless good health and energy will do to him? It will put him into, it will lull him into a state of drunkenness. And what you think that you're going to live forever. And you think that you're going to be young forever. And you think that you're going to be beautiful forever. And you think that your body is never going to change. And you think that you're invincible when you're young. Everyone understand this? And the same applies to many people when it comes to veganism and vegetarianism. And it comes to working out in the gym and running. They don't work out, they don't eat healthy because it's good for you. Many people, they do it thinking that they're going to live forever. And that you only get sick and you only get cancer, you only get diabetes because of the food that you eat. And your lifestyle, what you do and how you live has no effect upon you. Many people, they become food and they think this. And they're happy at how they look when they go to the gym and when they eat certain foods. They're happy to be thin. They're happy to be skinny, to be frail. They're happy to be big and broad up muscles. They think that it's going to last forever. The next line of poetry, it says, يَرُدُّ الْفَتَى بَعْدَ اعْتِدَالٍ وَصِحَةٍ. After the young man is straight and strong, after he's healthy, يَنُوْ إِلَىٰ رَبِّ الْقِيَامَةِ وَيُحْمَلُهُ. He'll want to stand up, and then he has to be carried. He wishes to get up and stand up, but he can't stand up anymore. Yet still, now he has to be what? Picked up and carried. Because his strength and his straightness in his young years have done what? They're faded, they're gone. And oftentimes, he or she didn't use those youthful years for that which was a benefit for the deen and also for the dunya. For the deen and for the dunya. It's not just from a religious aspect. Everyone understand this? So therefore, I think it's more than clear. And these are a few brief words of wisdom for the youngsters and for those who are a bit more mature and a bit more seasoned. Be mindful of your time. Be mindful of your health. Be mindful of your life. And do not allow the years to pass you by. And you have done nothing for the morrow. Jazakumullahu khairan. Thank you very much for your participation. Brother Yahya and everyone else who memorized and practiced the hadith. May Allah bless you all and give you good health and free time and the ability to utilize them properly. Ameen.
We'll now be opening up the floor for question and answer sessions. So first off, we'll start off with live questions from the sister's side. The mic is in the front row. So would any sister like to ask any question? Would any brother like to ask any question? Wait.
Coming out here, get the mic.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Sheikh, I have a question. I don't know if it's related to what we talked about.
Okay.
I know that Prophet Muhammad peace be upon him, said that most of the hell will be of women. So I wanted to know why is this the case and why Prophet Muhammad is the one who mentioned that, like why most of the hell is women. And I have another question: is what is the techniques or the way to always increase the iman in the heart? Because
Clear.
sometimes it fades out with all these distractions in life.
Clear. Right, first question is, we know that the Prophet ﷺ says that the majority of the people with the hellfire will be women. Why is this? Why does the Prophet say this? And secondly, what are the ways of increasing one's iman? In light of the different problems or challenges or things that we face in this worldly life on a day-to-day basis. As far as the first question, then there are different interpretations that can be given to this hadith, in which the Prophet ﷺ is quoted to have said, "Tasaddaqna, فَإِنِّي أُرِيتُكُنَّ أَكْثَرَ أَهْلِ النَّارِ." He told the women from among the companions, he said, give charity, tasaddaqna, فَإِنِّي أُرِيتُكُنَّ أَكْثَرَ أَهْلِ النَّارِ, because I've been shown that you will be the majority of the people of the fire of hell. There are different interpretations which are all scholastic, not apologetic interpretations. Not interpretations that are meant to appease and please people and make people feel okay with the Prophet's words, but scholastic interpretations that were made by scholars who were not apologetic. All right? From those interpretations is what's mentioned in that narration and other narrations, is that many women, not all women, but many women, especially women who are wives or married, they take a blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and they reverse that blessing. They take a blessing of Allah and they reverse it. And then they become very, very ungrateful and disrespectful to Allah's blessings. And from those blessings is the blessing of good treatment and the blessing of kindness that a man shows to his wife. That a man shows to his wife. As the Prophet ﷺ said, لو أحسن أحدكم إلى إحداهن الدهر ثم رأيت منك شيئا قالت ما رأيت منك خيرا قط. Hadith that says that if one of you speaking to the men, not the women now. If you treated your wife kindly your entire life, and then you made a mistake, or you fell into an error, or you had a shortcoming and a flaw, the wife will say, I never saw anything of good. Or in simple, basic terms, many women, they say, you never do anything for me. You never help me out. You never take me anywhere. You never buy me anything. You never spend any time with me. You never. And he may have done so many things for this woman and was so kind to this woman, and he makes a mistake, he's victim to his human nature, and she immediately rejects and forgets and totally discards all good treatment that he did his entire life. So the Prophet he says is that this is a reason behind women going to the fire of hell. And the reason behind women being in the hellfire in abundance is because they take something which is simple and easy and they complicate it. It's not like drinking alcohol, doing this, fornicating, killing, murdering, things which are sins and crimes and vices of lust and desire. But something in which life is made easy and comfortable, and they do the opposite. So that's one interpretation of this hadith. Another interpretation of this hadith, which is given by some scholars, and a lot of them is authentic or not, some of them say that women outnumber men, period. Women outnumber men, period. They outnumber men in paradise, and they also outnumber them in the fire of hell. On this earth, women are more than men, and in Jannah, there's hurul, and there are azwajul mutahhara, purified wives, for every single man in Jannah on one level or another, where you get hurul or not. So all of the men in Jannah, if they have hurul and they have two wives of paradise, hypothetically, that proves mathematically the women will be what? More in paradise. And they'll also be more in the fire of hell. That's another interpretation, okay? And there are other interpretations as well. What's important is, in brief, is that this hadith does not mean under any circumstance is that all women will be in hell and men have an automatic guarantee to go to paradise. It doesn't mean that. And when men say women are ungrateful, wives are ungrateful, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself, he says, وَكَانَ الْإِنسَانُ كَفُورًا, and man is an utter ingrate. An utter ingrate. So just like you say women are ungrateful, men are also ungrateful. The human being as a race is ungrateful. And the Prophet ﷺ, he says, لَا أَحَدَ أَصْبَرَ مِنَ اللَّهِ, no one is more patient than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They say he has a son. They say this, they say that, and he gives them food and air and drink, and he gives them safety and protection. So the concept of people being ungrateful and disrespectful is worldwide for the human race. Obviously, sometimes men are more ungrateful than women, and there are other times in which women are more ungrateful than men. And there are certain situations and instances in which a woman specifically is ungrateful, and it doesn't mean that every single woman is ungrateful and is going to be burned in the fire of hell. Everyone understand this? So there are scholastic interpretations of this hadith. At the end of the day, the time and the society in which we live and the standards of which people live, many things from the authentic sunnah you won't be able to swallow until you empty your cup and accept it and submit it to Allah and be pleased and be happy that you are a Muslim. So the last thing that I'll say to you, for any other brother or sister with these types of questions, which are important, is that people, and I'm not talking about you specifically, sister, but people in general, they spend so much energy on asking why and how, instead of spending that energy on accepting the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So people today, they say, how will every non-Muslim go to the hellfire? How is this? And the Muslims are the minority. And we walk down the street, we get on a bus, we get on a plane. The average person isn't practicing Islam, doesn't know Islam. Everyone's going to the fire of hell, except for this one Muslim on the airplane. How is this? They haven't heard about Islam. It's not fair. How can they? How? Instead of them sitting down and saying, Alhamdulillah, that Allah chose me from 1 billion people and chose me to be a Muslim. Alhamdulillah, Allah chose me from all of these women to wear my hijab and to study and to pray and to practice. And inshallah, I won't be from among those women who will be of the denizens of the fire of hell. So it's very important to understand this. And that's in brief. As far as the second question, how does one increase one's iman, one's faith? There are many ways. The first way is to ask Allah to increase your iman. فَاسْأَلُ اللَّهَ أَنْ يُجَدِّدَ لَكُمْ الْإِيمَانِ. The hadith that states that a man becomes worn out, a man becomes faded, like a garment does. You keep washing it, you keep wearing it. It fades, it rips, it tears. So ask Allah to renew your iman. Ask Allah to renew your iman. That's reason number one. Reason number two is having more knowledge of Allah and more knowledge of His names and more knowledge of His attributes. More knowledge of Allah, His names and His attributes and His actions. The more you know about Allah, the more you will love Allah. And the more you love Allah, the more you will practice. And the more you practice, the stronger the engine of your iman is. Reason number three is to travel. Travel and interact with different people, different locations, and look at Allah's earth. Look how beautiful the earth is. Look how amazing the earth is. This area is totally green. This area, tundra, frozen, snow. This area is a blazing desert. This area is the people go down the street in boats full of water, etc. Look at Allah's earth, at Allah's signs. Look at the universe and ponder on what Allah has made. These, bid'night ta'ala, are three essential reasons and ways of enhancing, increasing, strengthening, and maintaining your iman. And there are many others as well. Wallahu a'lam.
Do the brothers have any questions they'd like to ask?
Fadl ya akhi.
Someone pass the mic directly.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
As students aspiring to become students of knowledge, inshallah, how should we prioritize the memorization of Quran, Ahadith, and learning the Arabic language? What should be completed first?
Right. Question as aspiring students of knowledge, inshallah, what should we do or how should we prioritize with regards to the memorization of the Quran, Hadith, and the Arabic language? A very good question, and I've been asked this many times before. And my answer is, it has to be tailor-made. There is no one-size-fits-all ready-made garment. There are certain people who are naturally good multitaskers. I can do an hour of Quran a day, 30 minutes of Hadith, 30 minutes of Arabic. Or if a person is studying full-time, I can spend 3 hours on Quran. An hour of hifz, an hour of reading, an hour of revision. And I can spend an hour a day just for memorizing Hadith, or 3 hours with the same program. Hifz, reading, and revision. And I can spend another 3 hours on Arabic, conversation, vocabulary, grammar, morphology, poetry, etc. So if you can multitask, and you plan on studying for some time, and you wish to have longevity, you're not just studying on the weekend. You're actually a full-blown student of knowledge, and you can multitask, then perhaps it's best to multitask, depending on your time and depending on your strength. And memory is like a muscle. It is a muscle. You have to develop it. You got to grow it. Everyone understand this? As far as if you're not a good multitasker, and you're a one-trick pony, and you have to focus on one thing at a time, which is nothing wrong with that, then you should start off with the Quran al-Kareem. Start off with the Quran al-Kareem. As far as if you're a good multitasker, or a one-trick pony, or whatever the case may be, but your time is limited. You're also studying in college. You're studying to be an astrophysicist, or you're studying to be a botanist, or you're studying to be a zoologist, or whatever you're trying to be, an environmentalist, whatever you're trying to be and do, and you're studying ilm on the side, which is a good thing, alhamdulillah, then you have to very much so prioritize your time. And a person may say, I don't want to study full time. I just want to learn the basics. I want to be able to read Bukhari by myself. I want to be able to listen to a lecture, my podcast, and understand it. But I'm not a hardcore devoted student of knowledge. Then I would advise you to section it off, because the Arabic language is extremely important. And oftentimes you can memorize Quran easier, and you can understand the Quran through Arabic. And sometimes it's easier to memorize Hadith, and it's easier to avoid misunderstandings of Hadith because of simple, basic Arabic language. So all sciences help and support each other. So it's going to depend on how much you want out of it, and most importantly, how much time you're willing to put into it. Everyone understand this? So it has to be based off of what? Off of the actual seeker. But that's the general principle, is the Quran should come first. Okay? And there's nothing like memorizing the Quran, without a question. And one more thing that you should add to that list as a beginner is al-adhkar al-warida ala nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, prophetic supplications. Quran, Arabic, Hadith, and authentic supplications. And that's very important to memorize the adhkar and to practice them on a daily basis. Adhkar, first and foremost, they connect you with Allah. And who needs a greater and stronger connection with Allah than the student of knowledge? Without Allah, there is no ilm. Without Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is no power, no strength to study and to benefit. You need Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Secondly, is that the adhkar Hanif, it teaches you and it shows you the concept of no pain, no gain. The concept of you get out of it what you put into it. So when you memorize something and you practice it and you revise it, it sticks with you. And that is manifested in adhkar. Do you forget what to say when it's time to eat? Of course you don't. Do you forget what to say after you eat? Of course you don't. Do you forget the supplication before you go to sleep? Of course you don't. Do you forget the supplication when you wake up? Of course you don't. Because you do it what? Every day. Repetition, 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 and repeating that which was repeated. That is the golden principle of the student of knowledge. Is mudhakara. Mudhakaratul ilm is the bloodline. That's the blood life of ilm, is revision. And you need to be taught that from day one. Wallahu a'lam.
Have the microphone here. So, request we have the students here. In connection with the hadith that the Sheikh has given us, there's another hadith that's directly connected to this hadith. Who in the audience can pull this right out their hat? Another hadith that's connected to this hadith. We want to know who's sharp enough to pick another hadith that's connected to the hadith that you just memorized. We'll give you a minute or two to pull it out of their back pocket. All you young students, the students of hadith, who can pull this hadith that's directly connected to this hadith.
Anybody up for the challenge?
Not in Arabic, Sheikh.
Not in Arabic? He didn't say Arabic, did he?
Not Arabic, not Khidr.
Not in Arabic, not Khidr.
Could you repeat your question again, please?
It's another hadith that's directly connected to the hadith that the Sheikh gave. Who can pull that out really quickly? It's easy. No one on the first row. Not on the first row.
Ahmad?
I don't know the actual,
It's him, his request.
Just give it, just give in English, Arabic, how do you get it?
اغتنم صحتك قبل عافيتك. Correct?
It's him. Not me.
So use your health before your old age.
Just the two that's connected to the hadith. There's two that's in there that's connected. Take advantage of it.
Yeah, 1 second.
اغتنم خمسا قبل
قبل خمس صحتك قبل عرمك. So your health before your weakness.
وبينك وبينه هو
Trying to
ليس لي دخل. I'm not involved.
So your free time before your busyness. These are the two that are mentioned, but there are 3 more.
Right answer, I will say. He's close.
Your free time before you become
MashaAllah. Jazakallah
That's
khair.
the one, right?
Jazakallah khair, Abu
I
Sayyid.
don't know the actual like.
لا أحسنت. Good job. Jazakallah khair, Abu Sayyid.
Okay, Sheikh, I have a question here.
تفضل.
I have a friend who questions his/her iman and recently proclaimed as an atheist. When I try to convince and persuade and try to show the beauty of Islam, they would always argue back. What can I do to help my friend?
طيب. Somebody that is an apostate, an atheist. You said an atheist or an apostate?
Atheist.
An atheist. They were never Muslim. They apostated, they became an
They
atheist.
became they apostate.
طيب, someone was a Muslim, and for one reason or another, they became an apostate. They apostatized and they became an atheist, or the other billah. Refugees started all from that. Every time I try to explain to them, every time I try to explain to them and say to them the beauty of Islam, it doesn't work, etc. What can I do? In brief, brothers and sisters, it's not much that you can do. It's not much that you can do. It isn't much that you can do for yourself. The Prophet tells us that the hearts of the children of Adam are between the two fingers of Ar-Rahman, and He moves them how He wants, subhanahu wa ta'ala. He moves the hearts of the children of Adam how He wants to, azza wa jalla. So me and you, we don't control our own destiny and fate. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to be our end. So if you can't control what's for your own self, from Abaluk, or from min babil awla, then what about someone else? So if you can't control what's going to happen to you, and you can't control your own guidance, then what do you think about someone else? So it's not much that you can do. Then of course there are hunak asbab. There are reasons and means, as dua, asking Allah to purify your heart, to keep you guided, ihdina siratal mustaqim, etc. At the end of the day, this associate, a friend is a different story. This associate who's no longer a Muslim, if you've tried to speak to them and talk to them and explain to them and they refuse, then there's not much that you can or should do. Periodically send them something, periodically give them advice, but if they refuse to listen and refuse to have any respect and any consideration, then this person, you have to relatively distance yourself from them. You have to distance yourself from this person. You're only allowed to have friends who share your likeness in life. And what's the greatest likeness besides al-Islam? Alright? So with that being said, try your best. Try to be kind to them. Try to advise them. Try to be patient the best way you know how. And if a person refuses, you go your way and I go mine. I'm happy that Allah has kept me guided, and I feel sad that you've become misguided. It's just that simple. After you've already tried. And Allah knows best.
Would the sisters like to ask any question?
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Thank you again for yet another insightful and engaging talk.
Allah bless you.
So, have you ever played Chinese whispers before?
Chinese whispers?
So, when you would sit around in a circle and you would whisper a message to your friend, and that friend will whisper a message to another friend, and it goes on, and then once the message reaches to you, it's something completely different.
Okay.
Right? So the chain of narration, or the isnad that you briefly mentioned, is somewhat analogous to that. And what's even more, it's that it's been written 2 centuries after the time of the Prophet. So a lot of people claim that these hadith books are not necessarily authentic or they're corrupt. So how do you prove that and refute this?
Tayyib. Jazakallah khairan for the insightful question. With regards to Chinese whispers, you sit in a circle, 10 people, you tell one person one thing, the cat is orange, and it's a male cat. And FYI, 9 out of 10 cats which are orange are males. Very seldom will you find an orange cat that's a female. That strand or that gene is very rare in a female. So, says a male cat, that's an orange cat. Then the next person says it's an orange cat, which is a female cat. Then the third says a black cat and a gray cat. And then it ends up coming back to you as a dog, right? There lies no doubt that this is common and this is practical. However, the Arabs, and perhaps you know the statement, they have a statement, أَدْرَكْتَ شَيْئًا وَفَاتَتْكَ أَشْيَاءُ. They say one thing you've understood, but you've misunderstood 10 other things. And that's because the people sitting in this Chinese whispering circle are not Bukhari and Baki ibn Ibrahim and this one Abdullah ibn Sa'id ibn Abi Hind and Fulan and Ibn Abbas. These aren't just average people sitting in the Chinese whisper circle. But for argument's sake, they're humans. And they're people that pass on information. But we got to understand something, guys. The Prophet, he said to the young man, and he said to his father, all praises for Allah, who saved him through me from the fire of hell. So for these people who said, Inna kunna fi jahiliyatin wa shar. We lived in jahiliyyah, we lived in ignorance, we lived in darkness. We killed, we murdered each other, we worshiped idols, we were pagans, we were idolaters. We did all of these things. And then Allah brought Muhammad and guided us and blessed us. Do you think they would allow the words and the statements and the verdicts of the man who was responsible for their salvation to just go down the drain irresponsibly? Do you think they will be heedless and careless? Maybe Muhammad said this, maybe he said that. Maybe the Prophet did this, maybe. And we're going to allow 250 years to go by before we write down anything that he said and did. So that makes sense. Intellectually, does that make sense? No way. The person who saved my life, who saved my soul, and who's the reason behind all good, I am going to pay the uttermost attention. As is mentioned in the famous hadith, that when the Prophet ﷺ made wudu, or when he spat on the ground, كَادُوا يَقْتَتِلُونَ عَلَى وُضُوئِهِ. They will fight each other to get the spilled water. They will fight each other to pick his sputum off the ground, and they will wipe themselves with it. Because everything that came from the Prophet ﷺ's body was what? Was miraculously blessed. So if they were fighting for his water, what do you think they would do for his what? His words. So there lies no doubt. Humans consider a Chinese whisper circle, but not people talking about an orange cat, but talking about the reason behind it being saved from the fire of hell. They're going to give the utmost attention and the utmost accuracy in preserving the reason behind their salvation. Intellectually, can you agree to that? There's no doubt about that. That's number one. Number two is those who say that the Prophet's words were not written down until after 250 years after his death. They have lied. And that is inaccurate, and that is not true. Whether it was Ignaz Goldziher, the first Orientalist who went from Hungary to Egypt to Palestine to Syria and returned to Hungary, and then there was Joseph Schat and Springer and this Orientalist and this scholar of Islam and of Hadith. That's a lie, and that's not true. And they themselves believe and understand that Imam Malik rahimahullah ta'ala was one of the first people to write a book on Hadith, and he died before the end of the 2nd century. Imam Malik wasn't the first person to write a book of Hadith, and it's not the first documentation of Hadith, but for argument's sake, they themselves acknowledge that he has a book of Hadith, and it wasn't even 250 years after the Prophet's death. So that it makes no sense whatsoever. The Prophet ﷺ, he said about his khutbah, when that Yemeni man came to him, he said, "Uktubu li Abi Shah." This man whose name is Abu Shah, write my hadith down for him, write my khutbah down for him. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he mentions, هذا ما فرض رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من الزكاة. He says this is the mandation that the Messenger of Allah has mandated the zakat. Camels, cows, goat, sheep, and it was written down. Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, he says, I've written everything that the Prophet ﷺ said. Everything that he said, when he was angry and he was happy, everything that he said. فَنَهَتْنِي Quraysh. But the pagans of Mecca, they said, don't write down what this man says. He's a human being. He becomes happy, he becomes sad, he becomes angry. You write down everything that he says? He went to the Prophet ﷺ and he asked the Messenger of Allah about the doubts that they gave him. And the Messenger of Allah, he says, "Uktub, فَوَلَذِي نَفْسِي بِيَدِهِ لَا يَخْرُجُ مِنْهُ إِلَّا الْحَقِّ." He says, write down everything that I say, because I swear by the one whose soul by the one whose hand my soul is in, nothing leaves my mouth except for the truth. And there's hadith after hadith after hadith, in which the companions during the time of the Prophet ﷺ wrote down his hadiths. And there are countless documents in which the Sahaba wrote down hadiths, and they wrote letters asking about hadiths, and they documented hadiths. Was the science of hadith formulated and perfected? And did it reach its full peak of evolution? Was it a Sahih Bukhari in this book in the 1st century? Not necessarily. But he who says that the hadiths were not written down until 250 years has lied. Intentionally or unintentionally. That's not true. Last but not least, when we talk about intellectual, scholastics, or academia, so on and so forth, I'm going to make an example for you. If I write down on a piece of paper, and I say that you're wearing a green khimar, I write it down, and then I type it up, and I make a nice, pretty, beautiful letterhead, and I seal it with wax, and I make a nice letter and I preserve it. Does that mean that the information is authentic because it's written down? Yes or no? What color is your khimar? It's not green. But I did what? I wrote it down. So just because something is written down does not mean what? Anything. Pause the tape now. You're wearing a pink khimar. I want to go home to America. I'm going to tell someone, a friend of mine, there was a sister at last night's lecture and tonight's lecture, and she had on a pink khimar. Don't forget what I told you. Those who are listening online, she had on a pink khimar. And then they're going to tell another person she had on a pink khimar. And they're going to pass it to 50 other people, and they're all going to say that she had on a pink khimar. Did they write it down? Yes or no? Was it documented? But does it mean that it's inauthentic and inaccurate? So this is the simple intellectual proof that Western academia, when it comes to this one point, is totally flawed. Totally flawed. Not partially, 101% flawed. In which they think and they feel just because something's on paper, it's authentic. And just because something is oral tradition, it's automatically what? Inauthentic, and it's folklore. That's wrong. That's wrong. Are you understanding this? So when they talk about academia and they talk about intellectual proofs, they are hypocrites themselves. And they do not abide by the true rules of academia. It means nothing writing something down if it's a lie. And it means nothing verbally memorizing it if it is what? Accurate. Point proven or not. So therefore that's not true. If you want more details on this with the night time, then I will humbly advise for you to go back to the series of lectures that we have done on Tadween as-Sunnah, the compilation of the Sunnah. On our channel, on our website, we have discussed this in detail about how the Sunnah was put together, how it was compiled, how it was conserved, how it was documented. Also on our channel, we have a playlist of books that we have critically reviewed in English, not Arabic, in English. And you can read the specific, detailed argument of those who say that hadiths were not written down except for 250 years after the Prophet's death. I would strongly advise you to go back to that series, in which you yourself, don't have to take it from me, you can read it and see the proofs and the evidences and the examples of things that were written down in the time of the Prophet, things that were written down in the time of the companions, and things that were written down in the time of the Tabi'un, years before Imam al-Bukhari was even thought of. And one of the reasons behind this mistake, one is just pure lie and pure inaccuracy. Only Allah knows what's in the hearts of men. And another reason is people, they don't make a difference between taking notes and between the second draft. You wrote everything down that I said, but it doesn't mean that it was formulated and rewritten and put into a clean, documented memorandum. Everyone understand this? So therefore, if I did a lecture and you were really, really quick, you wrote down everything that I said, or if not everything, much of what I said, and you recorded it with an audio recorder, right, or video. So what I said in this lecture, when was it written down? During what? During the what? During the lecture. Not every single thing, but much of it. No doubt, right? And what you did write down, you either memorized it, or it was recorded, or someone else wrote it down or memorized it, right? And then 2 weeks later, or 2 months later, you've finished your school, you've graduated, you're done college, you're free, and you say, I'm going to rewrite the what? And document them, and summarize them, and organize them, and categorize them. And I'm going to call Sister Fatima, and Sister Karima, and Sister Omar Abdullah, hey, that part of the lecture, which I went to use the bathroom, can you give me that? And you call another one. What did you, I missed something. He was talking too fast. I didn't hear it. And then you compile it and organize it, and you have a total transcription of the lecture with the footnotes. Does that mean that it's made and fabricated? It's made up. And that is exactly what happened in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th century. So it does not mean that it's made up. It does not mean that it was never ever written down in the time of the what? The Prophet. And for argument's sake, just because something is not written down does not mean that it is what? Isn't true. Clear? And Allah knows best.
If everything is predestined, does that mean we have no free will?
Tayyip. I'm not wearing boots today, I have to call me, so I can't give that example. If everything is predestined, does it not mean that we have free will? You do have free will, but you don't have free will. It's a yes and a no answer. وَمَا تَشَاءُونَ إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ. You can't do anything unless Allah wills it. But how do you know what Allah wills until after you yourself do what? Try. You have to put forth effort. So I studied all night. I crashed. I reviewed. I paid attention during the semester. I took the exam and I failed. Did you know you were going to fail before you took the exam? Of course you did. You tried your best. But it wasn't the will of Allah for you to pass. It was not the will of Allah for you to pass. But you yourself exerted yourself to do what? To pass. Is anyone in this room going to differ with that logic? No one can differ with that. You don't know what's going to happen until you actually what? Try. After you've tried, you've exerted yourself, now it's time to say, قَدْرُ اللَّهِ وَمَا شَاءَ فَعَلَ. I was not meant to pass this exam. And the proof is that I did what? I failed. That it wasn't meant to be. So therefore, the Prophet ﷺ, when he was asked, فِي مَنْ عَمَلْ, why do we work deeds, O Messenger of Allah? The Prophet says, اِعْمَلُوا فَكُلٌّ مُيَسَّرٌ لِمَا خُلِقَ لَهُ أو كما قال. He says, work deeds, work hard, because everyone should be allowed to do with that which was made for him. If it's made for you, it's going to happen, inshallah ta'ala. But how do you know unless you do what? You have to try, you have to put forth effort. So the slave from one aspect has free will, meaning you have a mind. You have the ability to discern right from wrong. You have the ability to want and to dislike and to hate. I like this and I don't like that. I like the red shirt and I don't like the what? The navy blue blazer. But you go to the store and they don't have your size in the red shirts anymore. Everyone understand this? You tried, you wanted, but Allah's want was dominant. So it's just that simple. We can't do whatever we want to do that isn't written by Allah and known by Allah. But we do have the ability to think and to want and to desire. And we have to try and strive. If it happens, we know that it was the qadr. And if it doesn't happen, we know it wasn't the qadr. But it doesn't mean that you don't try again a second time or a third time. Wallahu a'lam. That's in brief, obviously.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Sheikh, jazakallah khairan. The talk intrigued me verily to ask you the following question. Indeed, Islam has a beautiful message, and every single Muslim on this planet carries the burden of conveying its beautiful message. The question here is, though, that we're faced with a certain dilemma, where we have a group of people who are very much strongly willed. However, they're ill and not that qualified to speak on behalf of Islam. So they used to, or they technically get into the very understanding of giving off false information, theories, convictions about Islam in the name of Islam. And there is another group of people where they are way too afraid to speak something on behalf of Islam, and they're too afraid to get that wrong because they're afraid to be held accountable. And then you have the Prophet ﷺ saying, "Ballighu anni walau ayah," convey for me even one verse. So where do you draw the line? Where exactly, or what's the bottom line that we can base it on?
Crystal clear. Beautiful question. Very thought-provoking question. May Allah bless you. And may Allah reward you. And it's my pleasure that you were intrigued by the lecture and you benefited. Alhamdulillah. That's very satisfying for me. So may Allah increase you. With regards to where do you draw the line? Some people have the ability, but they're afraid. Some people aren't afraid, but they don't have the ability. Some people are scared and so on. So where do you draw the line? Dawah is of different levels. There's different levels. For someone to say or to believe that you have to be a walking, talking Imam al-Bukhari to give dawah or to give a class or to call someone to Islam, that's wrong. That's not true. Many issues and aspects of dawah, you don't need a great load of knowledge. And oftentimes, it may be harmful to have too much knowledge, like too much electricity, too much juice. It's just too strong. You'll burn it out. You'll destroy it. It's too powerful. And the only thing you need is a little small, tiny bit of voltage for a light bulb to come on. And then there are other times, other projects, other devices in which you need a what? A good charge to charge your iPad. It says this accessory is not what? Not compatible for this device. The cord isn't powerful enough. The wall piece, the cube isn't what? Power enough. It's made to charge a phone and not for an iPad, for example, hypothetically speaking. So therefore, you don't need a great deal of knowledge for every single aspect of da'wah. To give a non-Muslim the basic teachings of Islam, you don't have to be a scholar. Islam is based on 5 pillars, 6 articles of faith, monotheism, the Messenger of Allah. Simple and easy. Everyone can do that, and everyone has to do that. Those of us who can't speak that well, who aren't that articulate, who aren't that smooth with their words, give da'wah with your actions. Hold a door for someone. Buy someone a gift. Treat someone out to something. Pick up, hey, you dropped your pen. Sir, be nice. Wow, a Muslim returned my expensive pen. He could have put it in his pocket. I thought Muslims were thieves. You walk down the street with your wife. You take your wife out to dinner. And they say, wow, Muslim man taking his wife out to dinner? I thought Muslims beat their wives. People think this and lock their wives up in jail. This is what they think. So there are many manifestations of da'wah that do not need a great deal of what? Knowledge. And there are other aspects of da'wah which you do need a great deal of knowledge. Things that are tricky. Things that may become a bit hairy, a bit sticky. Things in which become very controversial. And if you say it the wrong way or present it the wrong way, you may misinterpret and misrepresent Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's legislature. And that's a huge, huge problem. And that's the greatest sin, as Ibn Qayyim has explained. Worse than shirk. وَأَن تَقُولُوا عَلَى اللَّهِ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ ذكر هذا بعد الشرك. قل إنما حرم ربي الفواحش ما ظهر منها وما بطن كمل لا بعدين وأن تقولوا شوف كيف Ibn Qayyim said that the greatest sin is to speak about Allah without knowledge, and that includes shirk. So you ask a question about a major controversial issue, and you say what you think and what you feel, or the little bit of knowledge that you gained from this da'wah training program, you fall into a pitfall of problem. You know what I'm saying? So it depends on the maqam. يختلف على حسب المقام. Alright? As far as fear and a person being afraid, then there lies no doubt that's a widespread problem. May Allah protect us therefrom. And if you're afraid of what people say about you, and what people think about you, if you're afraid of the harm of certain people, Muslim or non-Muslim, you're in the wrong field if you're doing da'wah, the wrong field. And that's because you calling people to Allah, Muslim and non-Muslim, you've automatically made yourself a target for the people. Waraqat ibn Nawfal radiallahu anhu, inshallah he's some of the companions, when the Prophet ﷺ was brought to him, and he told this old man about what had happened to him, and how the angel came to him, and gave him, and recited to him, etc. Waraqah, he says, woe to me, if I was only a young, strong man, إِذْ يُخْرِجُكَ قَوْمُكَ, when your people kick you out. I wish I was strong. I wish I was strong and wish I could be alive when your own people kick you out of Mecca. And the Prophet ﷺ, he says, أَوْ مُخْرِجِيَهُمْ, will they kick me out? He says, no one has ever brought what you're bringing, إِلَّا أُودِي, except that he was hated. No one has brought the message that you're going to bring to the people except that he was what? He was hated. So calling people to worship one God, calling people to follow the last and the final messenger, calling people to pray, to be pious, to be righteous, to give zakat, to do. People are going to hate you. People are going to say bad things about you. People, they're going to be insecure, the human psyche. I'm not doing the right thing. You're doing the right thing. You're trying to do the right thing. I'm going to blame my problems on you. My insecurities on you. So you've made yourself a huge bullseye for people. If you're afraid of people and scared of their harm and their fear and their annoyance, you're in the wrong profession if you're doing da'wah. You need to get a new day job. Because a da'iyah, an imam, a scholar, street da'wah, whatever da'wah, someone's going to hate you. Because you're calling people to go away from their desires. So fear and da'wah is like water and oil. They never ever mix. You must be brave and you must be courageous and to be fearless. You can be wise. Be mindful of what you say. Use tact, use strategy. But if you're scared about them saying this and shutting me down and locking me up, you're in the wrong profession. Fasda' bima tu'mar. You have to be open in public with the truth. You cannot be a person who's taken over the one who's blameworthy, blaming you. So therefore, all situations don't need a great deal of knowledge. Some situations need more knowledge than others. Some situations need a great deal of knowledge, and you cannot be scared, and you cannot be afraid. You have to strike the balance on depending on the situation, and that's wisdom, hikmah. And whoever has been given hikmah, Allah says he has been given what? Khayran kathiran. And what you know what to say, when to say it, how to say it. And most importantly, you know when to keep silent, and how long to keep silent, and why you're keeping silent. That's wisdom. You can't do this unless you have fiqh al-din. So there is no one answer for it. You have to know when to talk and when not to talk, how to talk and how not to talk. And that is ad'u ilallahi ala basira. That's the meaning of basira, is that you know the people that you're speaking to. In Malaysia, this is the problem. Avoid this. Talk about this. This is an issue. America is different. People inside of America are different levels, different ages, different races, different ethnicities, different backgrounds, different culture. So you have to know who you're calling. When you need a lot of knowledge, and when you need a what? A little bit of knowledge. هذا باختصار طبعا. والله أعلم. أرجو أن قد وفيت بطلبك الكريم إن شاء الله.
وفيت وكفيت.
جزاك الله خيرا. بارك الله فيك. بارك الله فيك.
How do we advise someone, for example, regarding hijab, without being labeled or seen as judgmental?
Just like the previous question. If you're afraid about being labeled or seen, you're in the wrong profession doing da'wah. I give you advice about your hijab, and it matters not what you think or feel or say about me. I'm giving you advice for the face of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nothing more. Sister, inshallah ta'ala, if you get a chance, maybe we can go to the hijab store together. I'll pick some things out for you. Here's a gift. There's a book that I read, a fatwa that I read, a hadith that I read about covering. If she accepts it, alhamdulillah. And if she doesn't, you're judging me, you think you're better than me, so on and so forth. Of course I don't think I'm better than you. Of course I'm not trying to be judgmental, but this is the truth. And if she doesn't accept that, then what? Shukran. Assalamu alaikum. Have a good day, sister. If you ever need me, you know where to find me. If you need more information about the hijab, go to this website. That's it. You cannot be afraid and worried about what people are going to say about you. And if you're afraid and worried about what people are going to say about you, then as if you're worshiping the people and not worshiping Allah. You're worried about them instead of worrying about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wallahu alam.
What are some practical tips to fight procrastination and wasting time? For example, how to not waste time, especially on social media?
Right. Practical tips. First and foremost is to know the preciousness of time. The preciousness of time. The time is precious. It's precious. It's not to be wasted and squandered. The more valuable a thing is, and the more that you know it's valuable and precious, the more that you'll safeguard a thing. And that is why you go to a jewelry store. Before you go to the store, oftentimes you have to press a bell. They ring and buzz you into the store. And you go through one door, and then they open up the next door. You can't just walk into the store oftentimes. And things are behind glass, and there are cameras, and there's a security guard, etc. Why is there so many levels of security except because of the value of those pieces of jewelry? Those diamonds are precious, so that's how they treat them. So you have to realize that time is the most valuable gift of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why Allah says, wal asr. إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. By time, all men are in loss. Except what? Those who do good. Everyone understand this? Those who believe and those who do good deeds. So time is the most precious thing that you have. And if you don't realize that it's precious, then you can't properly manage it, and you'll squander it and you'll kill it. So the first step is awareness. The first step is enlightenment mentally. You have to know what you got. After you know what you got with Allah Ta'ala, you have to figure out what you want to do in life. Anything that you want to do in life, whether you want to be a basketball player, or an imam, or a master chef, you're going to be a professional skateboarder, or whatever you want to do in life, you need time. And if you don't properly utilize your time, you can't obtain any of your dreams like we just said. The next step is to realize what is in your personal life. How long you sleep. How much do you eat? When do you eat? What are your sleeping habits? How many friends do you have? How much time do you spend on social media? Go on your iPhone or your Samsung, whatever phone you have, and look at how long your battery has been running. 37% on this, 27% on that, 10% on that. Ask yourself, if you have an iPhone, if you have iBooks or Adobe, whatever app you're using to read books, how much of your battery percentage was used in iBooks? And how much of your battery percentage was used on Safari? Everyone understand this? If it's 70% on Safari, or 70% on Facebook app, or WhatsApp, or this or that, and 5% on iBooks, there you go. Something's wrong. Everyone understand this? Whack it up. So you have to weed out the problems and the reasons behind you wasting time and the reasons behind you not valuing time. Once you have those problems in your scope, then you bid in that ta'ala, seek Allah's help and addressing them one by one gradually. And most importantly is having good friends. If you hang around time wasters, if you hang around bums, and what I mean by bums is not someone who's in the street begging. No, it's someone who doesn't realize the importance of time. Someone who wastes their life drinking and smoking and laughing and fornicating and playing. That's what I mean by a bum. If you hang around people that do nothing of positivity, of the deen or the dunya, then there lies no doubt in the taba'a saraq. Character is a thief. Character is a thief. It's going to rub off on you. And you'll become a time waster and you'll become a procrastinator. Wallahu a'lam. Social media as well. Get on social media, you say hi to your friends, you send salams, how you doing? It's a picture, I'm in Malaysia, kala, alhamdulillah. But you keep it at a limit. You don't become a slave of Facebook, a slave of Instagram, a slave of WhatsApp, a slave of social media, in which you live in a virtual, unreal world. And everything is about where you are and what you're doing with people. That's a problem. Wallahu a'lam.
The question says, Barakallahu fiqh, Shaykh. I love gaming as it's my hobby. Is it wrong to have this as my hobby, even if I'm not excessive or playing impermissible games?
Right, with regards to being a gamer, and I love it because it's my hobby, is it haram or impermissible? If it isn't an impermissible game, and I don't do it excessively, no, it's not necessarily haram. A game console is like any other tool or instrument. It's like any other tool or instrument, an ink pen. I can use it to write down verses from the Quran, and I can use it to write down an incantation of sorcery or magic. It's a tool. If I use it for good, it's for good, and if I use it for bad, it's for bad. And the same applies to a television or a game console. It depends on what game it is. You can play a game in which you're just driving a car. And you can play a game in which you're naked men, naked women. You can play a game in which is unnecessary violence. You can play a game in which is kufr and shirk and magic and things like this. It depends on the game. It depends on the game. And just like you have physical recreation and physical activities, you have recreation for the mind and recreation for other things as well. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as it's based off of what you mentioned in the question. It's not a haram game, and it is not done excessively. That applies to other sports and other recreation as well. Wallahu a'lam.
Would the sisters like to ask any questions? This is the last question you may ask for now. Would the brothers like to ask any questions?
Thank you very much for your time and for your attention. Jazakumullahu khairan.
There is a question.
خلاص إن شاء الله. خلاص.
Can you take one more question?
تفضل.
Hello. Assalamu alaikum. So regarding hadith, right, there's different types of hadith, and that's understandable. But regarding weak hadith, can that be used to back up points or even used for anything pretty much? Or should we avoid talking about weak hadith until further backup or anything like that?
Questions regarding weak hadiths. Do they have any place and any use? Can they be used to support certain points, etc.? Yes and no. Yes, they can, and no, they cannot. The yes part is they can be used by someone who's learned. By someone who's learned. They can be used by someone who has ilm, knowledge, fiqh, of Quran and of Lugha and other sciences. They can be used. And they can be mentioned to prove certain points. Alright? And also pertaining to your audience and your crowd. You may give a khutbah, and what you say in the khutbah, there is a hadith that says, وَرَدَ عَنِ النَّبِي صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم حديث ولا يصح. وروي عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم حديث ولا يصح. The khatib says there is a hadith which is mentioned. أنا لم أقول أنه ثبت وجاء عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بسند صحيح، لا أقول ورد عنه وفي الحديث وفي الأثر وكما يروى وفي الحديث الضعيف المشهور. A person says in the weak hadith, a hadith that's mentioned. This is what the khatib says in the beginning of the khutbah. And by the end of the khutbah, when the people get up, the people will get up and they'll say, like he said about Chinese whispers, they'll get up and they'll say, the Imam said in the khutbah today that the Prophet ﷺ said such and such and such and such. And he clearly stipulated and said that the hadith is not sahih. But the audience and the people whom he's speaking to are people that are far from ilm. They're far from fiqh, and they're far from the technicalities of hadith. And oftentimes, they're barely having a proper understanding of Islam because of the secular lifestyle. You know what I'm saying? This, and people's attention span is so short, they can't even pick up on the Imam clearly saying the hadith is not authentic, but it has a good meaning. Or it's a popular hadith. He may refute the hadith. إِنَّ أَبْغَضَ الْحَلَالِ إِلَى اللَّهِ الطَّلَاقُ. The most hated lawful thing to Allah is divorce. And he gives a class proving that this hadith is not authentic. Its meaning, nor its chain of narration. And the people will leave the class, they'll leave the lecture room, and they'll say, he gave an explanation of the hadith, the most hated thing to Allah that's lawful is talaq. How is this? So it depends on who your audience is. So if you have the proper audience, and you have the proper usage of the hadith, then perhaps it can be done. Clear? The no part is, you have an improper audience. A mixed audience in which people don't get the point, like I just said. Or you yourself don't have the proper fiqh. You think that you're using it properly, but you're using it improperly. And the hadith itself may have a bad meaning. And it's not just technically weak, but the meaning is munkar. It doesn't go with the other authentic hadith. Everyone understand this? And you may use a hadith which is extremely weak. And the ulama hold the view that you can use weak hadiths. They've placed conditions. And from those conditions is that Allah yashtadda waqfuhu. It cannot be extremely weak. So it's yes and it's no. But I would say, in the authentic hadith, there's more than enough. And there isn't enough time for you to sit down and read Bukhari on a daily basis from cover to cover. So there's more than enough in the authentic hadith. But to be honest, yes, you can, and no, you cannot. Wallahu a'lam. وإياكم. الحمد لله. صلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبده ورسوله نبينا وإمامنا محمد. جزاك الله خيرا. Thank you very much.